Hi, everybody. I'm here with Jim Durbin. Some of you might know Jim as the Indeed Whisperer, and some of you might know him as other things too. And we're talking recruiter enablement, but we're talking a specific thing here because Jim's launching a new venture, and I'd love to find out a bit about it. So, Jim, first of all, just give us a bit about your background and like how you've got to where you are now.
Sure. Well, I've been 25 years in the recruiting industry. Started off way back in the day at a tech systems clone in Los Angeles, and I've been able to play in a lot of different places, from staffing to internal corporate recruiting to RPO to executive headhunting, and then over to recruitment marketing. So I feel like I've been able to play in a lot of different areas to figure out what is a recruiter, like what is the difference in sourcing, what are we trying to do, what is our job overall. And I've been fortunate to be a lot of different companies and just see how people hire all across the globe. And it just kind of led me to where we are today, which is I do a lot of writing on the candidate experience, a lot of writing on the nuts and bolts of our tech stack, but also some philosophy on why we do it, and to a certain extent, what should drive us, and then of course where we're going into the future. I've been fortunate enough to play with AI in the last 6 or 7 years, whether it was robots for autistic kids to help them self-modulate, or taking giant amounts of data and turning it into something far more interesting. So it's weird how everything is converging at the same time, and that's kind of led us to where we are today, which is where exactly everybody's freaked out. We're not quite sure what those steps are. Yeah, I mean that's kind of where we are today.
In terms of like just the general, the main theme of the channel is about recruiter enablement. Before we come on to Respondable, I just want to find out from you, like, enabling recruiters to do a great job. Like any hot tips, anything you've seen done really well, anything you've done that's been successful, or the opposite, anything that you've seen done really badly and you'd caution against.
Well, one, I just love the topic. The very idea of recruiter enablement was a stroke of genius. So congratulations, that's incredible. For people who don't know, sales enablement was the other side. So the question is, how do we get to do our jobs better? And the challenge is we don't really have formal training programs for how recruiting is done. So when we say recruiter enablement, the nice part is it's a blank slate to come up with whatever we want. The question is, what do we do wrong? I don't think that we do things wrong so much as that we keep repeating the same mistakes. Someone once asked me, I was sitting there with Craig Fisher and it's at a talent net. They said, what is it that we keep running into these same problems over and over again? And I actually think that's really comforting. If we know how to fix our problems and we keep coming up with them, what we call them sunrise problems, they keep coming up, right? It's a little country for you. Uh, the beauty of it is that since we know what it is, it's a matter of education. So if you think about it, every year we have new people in the workforce, we have new managers, people switching jobs. We know what to do, but for some reason we're in a cycle where we hire a bunch of recruiters and we lay them off. And it's a mistake on our part not explaining what it is we actually do. So the best part of anything for recruit enablement is, did you give your people time to use your software, to understand your processes? Or do we just simply hire and then expect them to magically make everything happen? And that's really how it's done. It's a challenge for us because the same thing with marketing. You don't hire a marketer and not give them a budget. You hire a marketer, give them budget and a team, and then they integrate with sales, and then you get the results you're looking for. Just hiring a person, I think it's the lack of recruit enablement that's really killing us. And then the longevity. It's very hard to do something for 6 months or a year, make some changes, put out a fire, and then slowly begin to work on the corporation. And what I love about this is that instead of having to learn 6 or 7 different technologies, there's an opportunity to put it in one spot. So if people are using that software in and out day and day, and given the time to do so in the space, it becomes very exciting for you because all of a sudden you've got a trained person. I've trained 10,000 people. I not just trained them. 10,000 people have paid me to train them on using digital tools. And most of the time, I was just a dog and pony show. I'm just out there smiling, telling jokes, and everybody really liked it and said, "Oh, he's good." But they didn't go back and get anything done because you can't sit for 30 minutes or an hour or a day even and walk back to your desk. It's got to be sustained over a period of time. And one of the beauties of all the productivity tools is that it should give you the time to get really, really good at something. And the companies that have given me the opportunity to train someone over years, that person's a superstar now. And so the beauty of the idea of Recruit Enable now is that somehow, if we do it right, these people will actually get good rather than just expected to instantly know everything about technology and hiring and the process and the market all at the same time. So it's done right. It's a matter of we don't do a good job giving people the time to figure it out. The good news is that if you did give them time, everybody can figure it out. Hiring isn't that hard. It's just hard to do day in and day out. I think that's the challenge for us.
Just on that subject, I wonder about the concept of there are so many things involved in recruiting. It's such a broad discipline. So I wonder about the balance between training people how to do things versus giving them technologies where they only have to fill in, it's like paint by numbers to do marketing and paint by numbers to do sourcing and paint by numbers to do assessment. And actually they become more of a tech manager pressing the right things at the right time than actually like being skillful in all the areas of recruitment. Because I mean, I don't think I know anybody really that is an absolute expert in every area of recruitment. It's maybe John Vlastolica. I'm not sure if anybody else is. That it's very hard. What do you think about
that? I think that's actually the case. The problem is, what is it a human needs to do? And humans are great at figuring out problems and working with other humans. The challenge is, how do they learn and get to that point? I'm really good at looking at resumes because I've looked at hundreds of thousands of them. I'm good at assessing people in an interview because I've done it thousands of times. If you just start with somebody who's 22 and you expect them to have that experience, or their entire career is playing with tech and they've never done the detailed work, one, how do you know if they're any good? Like, how are they going to do that high touch? Why wouldn't you just automate them away? And then you have the other problem is they think that they're doing the job, but what happens when the automation breaks? What happens when it goes in a different example? That's the problem, automation. I tell this story about, I used to drive all over as a salesperson. So I like to get lost in cities so I can always find my way around. This is back when we literally, you could print maps, but it wasn't on your phone. You had a Thomas guide in Los Angeles. I started using Waze, and it was incredible because I could say, I'm going to be there at 3:18, and I was there at 3:18 by following it. And then one day I left my phone in my car, and I couldn't get out of my neighborhood. The neighborhood had 4 exits. I was going to the grocery store. 3 of those exits had a grocery store. I couldn't get out of my neighborhood because I was so dependent on the tech. And we see this a lot of times where people don't understand your brain changes. Like, how many people can remember anything now because we don't remember phone numbers? I remember my high school phone number, but I barely remember mine. So there's a challenge, and this is where it becomes really important. I just dropped something on ERE about this, about what directors need to do in the next video about recruiters. You have to use some of these tools to practice and learn. I think that's what's really scares me is we're all excited about productivity, but how do you know if your people are any good? And I think the real answer is we're terrified of asking that question because a lot of times the number of people that have never asked for salary negotiation until the offer is made is scary, but you assume they were supposed to. And managers and executives look at recruiters and think they're all executive headhunters because of the word recruiter. I had to ban the word recruiter in a couple of organizations because the expectations were too high for what they were paying for and what they were training. So I do think that there's a lot of stuff that can be automated away, but you eat your seed corn and you're going to be in a very bad spot. And I think that's kind of where we are today. And that's honestly why I started Respondable in the first place, was how do you build this next great generation of TA leaders? Because we're all getting a little gray haired when you go into the conferences, and who's stepping up, who's leading, who's learning. I'm a little worried about that next generation.
Tell us about it. Want to find out.
So Respondable was originally built because I got really good at recruitment advertising. I just because I've been around a long time, I understand how stuff is built, I understand the algorithms, I understand job descriptions and how the hiring process works. So I'm very good at managing budget and sending more candidates. The problem is if I did that, I was actually doing a disservice to the company. If I made it too cheap and gave them too many people, I actually made it harder to hire. Sometimes you need to set it at a trickle, and instead of cutting something 50%, you want to set 2%. So the question is, I could just do that, but what's the point of just cutting costs? Nobody wants their budget. If it's not a fungible budget, all I'm doing is saving a couple dollars for somebody and say thank you, but I'm not having that long-term effect. So I wanted to start training TA leaders on how they can use recruitment marketing, which includes what's wrong with your tech stack? Is there a problem with your job descriptions? Are your candidates even going to the right people? Or are they sitting there for 21 days because you never thought to ask a simple question of like, why are we sending them in this, into this direction? Why are we spending 30% of our budget on one location when we have 1,000 locations? So it started out just with that. And then the challenge there is no one has time as they cut TA departments. They're exhausted. So there's a second part of that. I've always liked training recruiters. And so I've just started working with FutureSolve and Impact Associates. There's a program that allows you to train laid off and disadvantaged recruiters into it's like a 4 or 6 week session. So the submittal should be there shortly. You literally go to your for instance, the Texas Workforce Commission first. There'll be in other states. People will be able to go to those and actually sign in through the government. That's how we'll know they're real. And then my job is to take them through this course, give them a certification at the end of it, and then try to get them interviews and jobs. And what really excites me about that is that the beginning stuff is easy. How do you talk to candidates? How do you write job descriptions? How do you get on the phone? Just the basics of being a recruiter in their candidate journey. But I also get to show them how to use an ATS. I'm hoping that you'll let me use poetry to show them, hey, here's everything that you're together. Places like Seekout and HireTool, and it's a Pivot CX. I'm going to use all the software that I've been using for a while to show them what it can be. And then now staffing firms are excited. We've got people interested in it. So we're hitting both sides. We're training recruiters on how to be recruiters, which is it's something. And I get that 6 weeks, it's not one course. Like, they're good about it. We'll be sitting on live with them, is basing the same thing I did for Sourcing Work Lab years ago. And on the other end, I'm working with TA leaders to get them to understand what needs to be done from their technology standpoint to send it to these recruiters. So it's kind of like, I'm always big on being philosophically consistent in your life and in your business. And when you're not doing that, I feel like your energy's in the wrong place. You're not quite sure. So it's just exciting to close that loop, to get both recruiters and leaders together, and not train them for forever, but just lift their vision a little bit, show them what's possible, remind them that we've always solved these problems. Now we have to start to communicate up the chain to the C-suite of why we're important, because you can't remove that human piece. Because if you go fully automated, people start ghosting you. The candidates themselves don't respect you. They have to know there's some magic number, we don't know what it is, of what you're supposed to do. And if you're going to automate the things that you hate, what is high touch? What is creative? What is the role of a human being in the recruiting? If the LLM could do the sourcing for you, contact people, schedule, evaluate better than you can, what is it recruiters are supposed to do? And by working on both sides, you're building up a giant tribe of people who get that we have a very noble profession. We're going to be the last ones to turn the lights out for AI. I mean, the truth is that somebody always has to hire. And because humans are weird, you can't fully automate that. So I'm just excited to put all those pieces together, build the next generation of recruiters and TA leaders.
Wonderful. It sounds very exciting. Watch this space. Jim, thank you very much for taking the time to join me today. Lots of wise things that you've talked about, and I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Adam. Good to see you.